we can make investments in our infrastructure. And this is the first really serious infrastructure improvement in Atherton in many decades. I think that we should all be very proud of it, and I really think this is just the beginning of it. It's going to be a tremendous exercise. I do want to say that I think that in the course of realizing this vision, that we need to excite our residents' imagination in what this location can be for all of us as residents of this town. And I hope that, I know that the state of California has passed a law that says that civic buildings, I believe that it's by 2020, have to be net zero energy, or maybe it's residents by 2020 and civic buildings by 2030, but it's in the game plan that these buildings need to generate no energy. And I hope that we will find the donors that will enable us to do that. I know that part of the plan is that it be LEED certified, but that LEED certification and net zero energy are two cost-effective, totally different things. So in the course of planning for this, I intend to personally see everything I can do to find donors that will support that. I think it's important that we excite our residents' imagination, and to the extent that people believe that our current site is essentially a parking lot, which is what I heard many, many times throughout the whole process leading up to this point, it may be out of our reach to put underground parking, but I hope that we can find somebody who's generous enough to make it a reality.
Perfect, thank you. Councilwoman Lewis.
So thank you, Cheryl, thank you, Matthew, and all of the committee members. Thank you, Steve and Clive and those who are here. Tom and Phil, yes, and Tom and Anne Marie. I hope this is a vision that is been worked on for many, many years, and to see it get to this point, the reality becoming true. So thank you again for all the work you've done. It's been an honor to work with you on it. So if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the City Council move with the following actions: that we accept the master plan project and project cost estimates. We authorize the city manager to initiate the master plan environmental review process. And we authorize the city manager to begin preparation for the design phase of the project, and to modify the Civic Center Advisory Committee's charter, which is on Exhibit 1 in our packet of this item number 19, to include the participation through the design phase of the project.
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? Seeing none. Let's call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. I'm really pleased that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So at this time, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 20 of our regular agenda: Little League's improvements at Wilbur Palmer Park, and the historic here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. At the February City Council meeting, the meeting I missed, comments and clarity were sought from the council on the involvement of the City Council with respect to the historic character review of the Little League project in Palmer Park. That was not initially the intent. However, if the council would like to assist, what I would recommend, and that's the basis of the staff report, is the council will form an ad hoc committee of 1 or 2 members of the City Council to assist planning staff in making that determination. And you may have public comment here this evening, so before you start to deliberate, there's that. That concludes the staff report.
Please, thank you. I don't any questions from the council? Seeing none, I have one. No questions? Want to make sure. All right. So seeing no questions from council, can I go ahead and open public comment on this item? And I have Walter Sleeth. Could you please come up? Thank you.
My name is Walter Sleeth, and I live at 227 Catalpa Drive. Mayor, council people. Item 20 on the agenda is a first step in seriously reconsidering what the council has approved. However, it is not sufficient. I'm sure all 4 of you have received emails explaining that residents' votes for the Little League were under the expectation that there would be further analysis of the size, placement, and permanency of the facilities. Item 20's focus is overly narrow. It fails to direct further consideration of the fences, foul poles, scoreboard, and the removability of the fixture. Much of the disapproval of the council's action has been because there has been no input from the residents themselves. The council's reliance on overwhelming support for Measure M is misplaced. Very few of us in this family-friendly community are against the Little League per se, or would vote against a measure seeking to improve facilities in the field. Even those who read Mr. Connor's analysis believed there would be further review before proceeding. There was not. And I'll make a little statement here. It's ironic, in light of the wonderful outreach that we had for the Civic Center, that in this case, there has been little or no outreach to the residents. Voters feel misled by last year's ballot measure seeking approval of an upgrade, which from the one-sentence measure did not suggest the size or permanence now proposed and seemingly approved by the council. Item 20 is unclear in that the subcommittee does not include any just plain residents. Including them would go a long way to making voters feel the council is not just racing ahead with ultimately allowing the reins to be held by the residents. I have discussed this with Phil Lively, who has been on the Planning Commission for a number of years. He and I would like to serve with other residents on this subcommittee. Marion Oster, who is very well informed about the park's history, buildings, and heritage issue generally, has volunteered to give advice on historic character issues. I request the council broaden the persons on the subcommittee to include others besides non-resident staff and council people who have already voted in favor of what I continue to believe are unnecessarily large bleachers. These would include, but not be limited to, Mr. Lively and myself. That is the only way the Little League's dreams will have any long-term credibility. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any other comments? Or, please?
When this subject came up at the last town meeting, I didn't say anything because I really felt it was unfair to the children not to go ahead with the construction of the bleachers. And it was great to see the little kids here participating in a real life democratic process, and they were all here. But I do feel that Mr. Sleeth is correct in that when we accepted the Little League thing, I think we did think that the size, there was the model, but there was comment that it was too massive, and there were comments about maybe making a chicken wire fence or plexiglass backdrop so that there wouldn't be a blind space. That was a security issue for the police, and also that perhaps the scale, it could look a little greener and the top layer might be off. So I don't feel that sort of the strict interpretation, because there was a mention in the rebuttal in the ballot of 200 seats, I don't feel that strict interpretation of the law is really applicable to the to demanding that it be as large as it presently is scheduled to be. So I would have to sort of say that I think it would be great to have the input of all those three people mentioned, and that perhaps some modification of the design that people believe is going forward could happen, and certainly consideration of, I wouldn't want to be having a flashing billboard, and when a game is happening across the street from my house. So certain things I think could be modified, and I think they're right. Perhaps they really do need a committee to have more input. But I really want us to get ahead and resolve this issue, because I really do think it's unfair to the children to keep them waiting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and bring it back to council. Reminding council that we're limited to the scope of what's on the agenda, which is Overcomer Park, review the historic character, so in creating a group. Please, any other council member?
So, when I saw this, I guess I was really, first off, I welcome it, but I'm really not understanding exactly what we're trying to do here. So, I understand going back through the tapes and everything that, Elizabeth did bring up properly that she did want to make sure that anything that was built was going to fit the character of the town and of the park. And so the way I read this, and I'd like some clarity, is that we're just talking about, do we put a facade on the top, or do we paint it a certain color or something like that? Is that specifically what's being addressed?
That's the purpose of the historic review, is just to make sure that the facility matches the historic character of the park.
Okay. Then personally, I'm not sure we need a big committee to go do that of a lot of people. It also says in the plan that it would come back again for review, potentially to the council. My conversations with the city manager said that was not the plan, or is it the plan?
If what the Little League submits does not match the historic character, that was a caveat of the approval of the council. If what they submit doesn't match, and through this committee discussion, they're unwilling to change it in any way, shape, or form, then I would argue that it doesn't meet the approval requirements that the council established, and it would come back for consideration.
Okay, so within that, I guess on tape number 3 of the January meeting, the vice mayor indicated a squishing down of the facility, potentially, so that is an off the discussion item, is that correct?
Correct, that's not part of historic character.
So it's just how it would look from the street,
Correct,
and it's just the stands.
correct.
Okay.
Any other comments? Councilmember DeBolia?
As I've said before, I think that this issue has gotten far more, lack of support than I think is appropriate. I'd like to do whatever we can do to include people in the process, to ensure that they have a perspective on what the facility is looking like going forward. And I think I guess we as a council decide whether to create a committee or not, and then you make the decision about how to staff it, which I'm comfortable with. I think it's appropriate that we have a committee.
Thank you.
So, just a comment. I feel confident that even without a committee, that the Little League group that is donating the funds to provide this for our town, and who have been very, very patient for over 4 years of work, took it out to a ballot measure, that they truly want to do the right thing for the town. And it's my feeling that even without an oversight committee or an ad hoc committee, that they would endeavor to make the baseball environment look like the park and fit into the park. And I think that's been very evident. But I think that if the mayor so decides to have an ad hoc committee to work a little bit more closely with them, to kind of, guide them a little bit and kind of give some additional reinforcement to what our decision was in January, or last month. Was it January? It was January, yes, okay. Then that would be good. So I'm in favor of having another ad hoc committee work with them on it.
I think there is a level of confusion probably with everybody, because why are we seeing it again? I think that's really the big picture, the big question, why? And it's really limited to the design aspect of this facility. And I would echo what Councilman Whipper said, this is really limited to what it looks like. Like, does it blend in with the surrounding character within the park? This process is not to change what's going on, that decision has been made. It's really to try to work with or oversee. We already had an understanding of what, based on the proposal that the Little League group had submitted, what the design aspect. Little League, in fact, took an opportunity to talk and set up a weekend where they talked about their design, provided preliminary plans of what the facility was going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. They went for a pretty good effort to try to get us to understand, and the town to understand, what the facility in fact was looking like. I think that we were all relatively comfortable with the overall design, the way that it was looking at. And it seems that now we're adding another layer of oversight to go ahead and see if they are going to comply. Obviously, if Little League does not comply with what our requests are to make it blend in with the historical character of the park, then it would be back before all 4 council members to say, we oppose that. So I think at this point, we will go ahead and add a ad hoc committee with myself and Councilmember Elizabeth Lewis to oversee the plans that are going to be submitted by Little League and see to assure that they are consistent with the historic character of the improvements in the park.
Okay.
Now, we're going to limit it.
It's just purview of the mayor.
No, we're going to limit it to that. So why don't we go ahead and take that item, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 21, which is